All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
Doing good. Back to the guns in the 701 right here. How
Yeah,
you
we
doing?
got you back on. It's been a couple weeks, Mike.
It's been a little longer than that with my work schedule, so yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
bit of a mess.
You
We've got a
realize
guest. We've got a guest tonight.
we do. We have a guest tonight. And before we get started, though, we are going to do our Second Amendment like we always do. Maybe Jason, would you like to do that for us tonight? We'll put it up here. So we always start every show off with our Second Amendment.
I'm ready.
All
A
right, go.
well, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Amen. Amen to that. We had
There you
Kelly
go.
Armstrong do that though every time he's been on the show, and he puts the comma in there. He says that's very, very important. Got to have the comma, which I completely understand what he's talking about there. So I went all Trumpomania tonight. I figure it's the last broadcast before the election, big election coming up,
Yep.
and that's the reason we got Jason on. He's involved in this big election. Hopefully, you're going to get some of that down ballot from Trump because I think it's going to be a big one, even in North Dakota, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a nonpartisan, just so you know. I'm the only nonpartisan running for this race, and yet my Trump flag, you can see it on the left in the background. It won't stay out of the picture, so there's nothing I can do. So,
Well, there's absolutely no doubt which side I'm on.
No.
I gotta have you look at the picture right above my head. That's George Washington with a
Oh.
Dodge Challenger.
Oh, we happen to have when we do our big sponsor
Commercials.
advertisings. Pay
Yep.
attention to the intro. That I think you'll like it because I'm sure that's where that come from.
Yep.
Is it Robin Williams playing?
And then the other picture on the right above my hand here, that is what my dad's uncle got when he came back from World War One, and he that was his let go release certificate.
Okay. Wow.
So
Well, that's
yeah.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Hey, I'm just gonna say good evening. Hey, Trampus, good evening. Gene, good to have you on. And Eric Newman, I see we got a Twitch listener. That's awesome. Brian Warner, good evening, Mr. Fellow MVE. 70 Nation, Jamie, good to hear you. Josh, good to have you on. Dan Brown from the Western Edge over there in Dickinson, North Dakota. Our buddy David Fetting with 1760 Sports. Get it right, right?
There you go.
One shot cap. Paula, well, we haven't seen Paula on very good. She has Trump looking good in the garbage truck today. Hey, did you guys catch that? That was pretty
Yeah, I saw a little bit ago.
And then he showed up at his rally just got over here a little bit ago wearing the vest. I thought that was classic.
I saw the yellow vest.
That is perfect, isn't it? I mean, that's just Trump right there. So, hey, Rumble listeners, glad to have you on. We got a few over there tonight as well. So, I'll tell you what, let's get this baby rolling and why we have the guest we have on. I want to introduce Jason Heitkamp. He is running for the superintendent of the Department of Public Instructions. I say that right here in North Dakota?
Yes, you're correct.
And I'm excited to have you run. I will let you know I already casted my vote for you. I just absolutely despise your opponent. And I guess that it's an easy thing. If you're in North Dakota, everybody knows probably why. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself as to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then we'll go into that because I really want to talk about the armed, what do they call it here?
Armed response.
Responder program as well.
Yep, armed first responder in schools.
Yep. But go ahead and tell everybody a little about yourself first, Jason.
Well, my name is Jason Heitkamp, and I've served in many roles in North Dakota, including on 2 different city councils. I served as a county commissioner. I've served in economic development for Richland County. I actually was a state senator for 2 years, as long as they could handle me. And that is a true story. They took my district and they moved it. They actually moved it out to Watford City. And they didn't tell me that I could move out there and be a part of Watford City. Otherwise, I probably would have moved out there because they did not want me anymore. I've read the Constitution of North Dakota, and I firmly believe that they're not funding the schools properly. And so I put a bill in to get rid of the mill levy for schools. And they did not like that. In fact, Senator Wardner called me into his office and said, I better watch out what I'm asking for. And Bob Hale, if you know who Bob Hale was, he passed away. but he sat right by my side in legislative council and made sure that that bill was written properly.
Okay.
And it got voted down on the Senate floor. We got 4 votes. They got 43. But it has started a conversation, I think, that has gotten everybody interested in the fact that schools should be 100% funded by the state, that it's a state obligation. And because it's a state obligation, you cannot use property taxes to fund it.
Sorry.
Well, it goes right to, I believe that's Article 8 in the Constitution, if I remember right, isn't it?
Yep, Article 8 and Article 10. Article 10 is actually the one that says you can't use property taxes for state obligations.
There you go. There you go. And then, of course, we got a big fight coming up with Measure 4, and everybody knows what's going on with that. So, but I'll tell you what, before we get it going down those rabbit holes, I really wanted to have your opinion on, as you know, the Armed First Responder bill. I don't remember what it was called. It passed in 2019, and it amended the North Dakota Century Code under the firearms and destructive devices part of it. It's 62.1.
I can give you the century. I can give you the century code 62.1-02-14.
Yes, and so I was reading through this thing because it's been a while since I reviewed it. I remember testifying on it. I thought it was a good idea, but I don't know. To me, the superintendent of public instruction has pretty much the final say on this in a reality. Of course, your local school boards have to actually approve it, and they got a litany of things, guys. Look at that. That's what you got to do just to even be one of these armed first responders. But go ahead, go ahead, and why don't you tell me? Do you believe that the superintendent of public instruction, because she claims right now she really has nothing to do with it, and everything I read in this, all the way through it, says that she does. So what say you, Jason?
Well, let's read the first line. The superintendent of public instruction, in consultation with the Department of Emergency Services and the Attorney General, shall adopt rules to administer this section and develop criteria for approval of the plans under this section. So when she says that she doesn't have anything to do with it, which I've heard also, she doesn't know what her job is.
Well, there you go.
Absolutely. And I've been told there's one school. I could not find that one school. I did some searching, but I have been told that. Whether it's true or not, I can't tell you. That's actually
well. I can tell you this for a fact. Okay, we had a debate on the Rob Port. I'll call it the Rob Port Network, whatever you want to call it, podcast. And she admitted that there's only one school district that has one, and I would have never admitted that, because now people know that there's 167 school districts out there that don't have one.
I was just going to say, Yeah, you're right. I was just going to say that. She just now told them that there's 167 at-risk schools, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or it's actually going to make people just want to go to one and figure out if there's one there or not. So it's very sad. The other thing I wanted to bring up was in the debate on the Rob Port Network, we talked about the school resource officer also. And I said that, the superintendent of public instruction has a lot to do with that. And she said, absolutely not. She doesn't have anything to do with that. And so if you do look it up, there is a part in there where they're supposed to be talking about like bullying. Okay, now there's 3 laws that they're not following under Century Code that have to do with bullying. So I can understand why she says that she doesn't have anything to do with it, because she's not following Century Code. All right. But the thing is, there's nobody that can be allowed to go into a school with a gun unless the superintendent of public instruction allows it. And then that's a fact. They have the final say on if you can build a new school, fix your school, and they sure as heck have the final say if you can carry a gun into that school. And if she doesn't want to have that ability, then she shouldn't be doing the job she's doing.
So let me ask you this real quick, sir. So what does she think her job is? I mean, that's a good question. If she's doing something, what is it that she thinks that she has the power to do?
Well, I just want to tell you this. I was never in the military, but when you called me sir, I just want to tell you I work for a living.
That's just me. That's just the way I
am. No, but that's what they always say. They always say, don't call me sir. I work for a living. Yep. But, the thing is, she picks and chooses what she wants to do. Okay. And one of them is bringing AI into the schools. Now, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but what I'm saying is that's not in the Constitution. That's not in Century Code. They're working on stuff that they don't have to work on. They need to work on proficiency scores. They need to work on safety.
Mhm.
They need to work on cutting costs. That's what they need to work on. And they're so busy working on other things. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And so I know that I probably didn't answer your question.
No,
And
but it's kind of you did, because it seems to me like everybody always wants to work on the 22nd century problems, and when we're trying to just get through our 21st, and look to the future. But we've got problems that we need to figure out right here on the ground, and stop making up things to justify our jobs. That's what a lot of people, I think, in government do a lot of times. They spend a lot of times justifying or going to meetings or going to places and showing up at places just to justify that they're getting the paycheck. But when you come to brass tacks and asking them what they do, well, like you've said, she doesn't know what her job is, and I think that's a prevalent problem in government and a lot of businesses.
And I'll piggyback off of that. I'm looking at the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction's Armed First Responder Program.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it's when you read the law versus what they have published, I'd like to know who put this together. Kirsten Baszler's name is on it, of course, along with Dr. Donna Fishbach and Lori Matkees. All I'm seeing here is right here it says within 90 days of informing the superintendent of public instruction of the intent to participate in the program, the school shall, and it's got 3 subsections: identify the individual and then submit a plan to the superintendent of public instruction specifying how the school will implement the program. And right here in their own deal on the North Dakota Public Instruction Plan, it says there is no required number of days between when a planning proposal is approved and a final plan. Well, the law says there is.
law says 90 days. Yep.
And they say no. I mean,
Yep. Yeah.
and that's just one of, oh my gosh, I don't know. I was kind of combing through this thing and I was like, wow, it looks like to me that they just wrote what they wanted. They ignored what was actually passed, and nobody has said nothing till now.
Well, I can tell you this honestly. If you really don't want to do something, then you won't do something. You'll concentrate on something else. And everything in this law is out there. And when they say that they don't feel that it's their deal, look at number 5. The plan submitted by the school to the superintendent of public instruction must show response time from law enforcement.
Mhm.
So everything relates back to the superintendent of public instruction.
Yeah, in fact, if you read through these, everything does. I mean, it's a lot of it starts with the superintendent of public instruction. It will be provided. I mean, you just read these things. To me, it looks like that position is one of the very most important positions in your program, and whether it gets approved and how it's planned and how it's implemented. I mean, that's how I read it.
Yeah. If I can take just a minute of your time, okay,
Yep.
and then we'll get back to whatever you guys want to talk about. But in my mind, okay, and this is why I ran. All right, these are the things that on day one need to be done in the superintendent of public instruction. Okay, all state century codes will be followed. All right. Now there's probably 11 century codes that aren't being followed right now. Number 2, check enrollment numbers for correctness. Right now, they have 2 different numbers that they use, and we don't know how much money that's costing the taxpayers to be off. All right.
Right.
Kirsten Baszler should answer why cost per pupil is so different amongst schools. We have schools that are parochial schools that are costing, between $12,000 and $13,000 a year, and that's giving them room, board, books, food, 3 meals a day. We have schools that are costing $81,000 per pupil, and they don't even give them a free breakfast. So let's figure that one out.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel that the cost per pupil is around $14,000. No, the average is actually closer to $23,000.
Wow.
Okay, make an avenue for whistleblowers. That's what we want to do. We want to have a line so people can call in and not lose their job when they do that, because we would get more ideas of what's happening out there.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt you quick there.
Yeah.
I personally know of at least probably a half dozen people that are either employees in the school as teachers administrators or otherwise, and they won't come forward because of what you just said. They're afraid they'll lose their job.
Yep.
Yeah. And so number 4, start weekly tour of schools. When I get in there, now I'm just going to tell you guys
That. I like that.
I only got 2 years the first time, so I only plan on getting 2 years the second time. Okay. It's a 4-year term, but I only plan on getting 2 years because I feel that they're going to be looking for ways to get rid of me. All right. So we will be going to all of the schools, talking to the kids, the administrators, the teachers, everybody, even the janitor.
And do it unannounced.
And that's not happening right now.
And do it unannounced.
Yep. And then we're going to close the funding gap. It's right now, it's around 80%. We're going to close that to 100%. That's my goal, using state funds. And we're going to focus on outcomes using the benchmarks available. And this is the most important part here. I'm going to build a consensus to significantly improve public education in North Dakota. And in the last 12 years, scores have continued to go down and down and down, and costs are going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And there's kids that are on the rolls that aren't even going to the school. And we're going to take care of that too. Up to 22 years old. If they don't graduate, they can be on the rolls for being up to 22 years old, and the school gets money from the state for them.
I was going to say, that must be like a state aid type program.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I apologize, but I just wanted to hit you guys with this because then you know where we're sitting at. But safety is one of the biggest issues that I worked on when I was in the Senate, because that has to come first.
Right. Well, what you're saying is that somebody in the upper echelons is padding the numbers to make so that the feds will dish more money to them, and that's what it sounds like. Right. Yeah.
That's exactly right. See, one of the jobs of the superintendent of public instruction is to have a transparent accounting system, and that does not exist as we know it. That does not exist. Whether it's scores, enrollments, costs. I mean, look what's happening across the state right now. There's at least 4 different schools that, Fargo, they just had a deal with the BLM people. $350,000, the superintendent of public instruction gave them a grant. And it's a complete
for
fraud.
Black Lives Matter, or is that something?
Black Lives Matter. Yeah, that's who these people represent. Okay, and I don't even think the people live in North Dakota. I think they live in Moorhead. But it ended up that the dad owned the barbecue place, the woman owned the dance studio. They were doing an after-school program, which, if you look in the Constitution, it does not say that we have to pay for after-school programs. It says we need to pay for K through 12 education.
Yeah,
and then we can pay for. We can pay for college with tuition. I'm paraphrasing there. Well, but it doesn't say anything about putting daycares in schools. Doesn't say anything about after-school programs. Nothing.
Well, my thing is that there are other programs. Me and Clay have talked about this many times. There are programs that they can go through to get grants for that without going through the school system. There are programs out there that will do that. So, to take an already stressed school system and take money and just give it out. I don't think school systems should be giving out grants to anybody. They should be taking care of the money they have to make sure the kids are taken care of. So
that's absolutely right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
One more thing I was going to tell you that you may not know is in the last couple of weeks, it's come out that $2.2 million was stolen from the Grand Forks School District in a wire fraud scam. And you guys haven't heard about it. They're working with the Secret Service. There's been no press conference, nothing. The media is not covering it. That's $2.2 million that's gone.
Wow.
Well, I got to tell you, down here in South Dakota, that's happening quite a bit. As a matter of fact, they keep finding lower echelon people. And one of the problems is that they've taken away the checks and balances so that people that are in charge of checks are also in charge of filing the reports and everything else and making sure everything's accounted for. And it's happening more and more. We've got one woman that's already going to go to jail that's worked for the state for 30 something years. And she stole 1.3 million, and we've got it happening with other cases that are popping up. And so if it's happening here, it's happening in other places. And yeah, when you take away the checks and balances, and that's what happens a lot of times. People milk the system, and I think that's exactly what you got happening up there, probably.
Yeah. And Jay Thomas, a guy who I really respect, good radio host, he said the other day that Kirsten Baszler, the buck doesn't stop with her on the money that's been stolen from the state. And it has to. It has to.
Why wouldn't
she has to be the one? I have no idea why he would say
She's
that.
the one in charge. Whether she directly is in charge of everything every single day, no. But she should have people who are definitely involved with that, I would think.
Right.
I want
the person in charge.
I want you to know that I'm not whining when I say this, but she was in Grand Forks on the day that this news broke, that there was $2.2 million stolen a wire fraud. Did she go over to the school and demand somebody be fired? No. She actually put a post on Facebook saying that she thought it was awesome that she got to go to the Red Pepper and eat.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
so when you talk about the buck, that's what I'm talking about, the buck. I would go over to that school and I'd say, okay, who gets fired today?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to put a couple comments on here, and that's fine. We're going down this. Keith O'Donnell, and I'm not going to address it, says get rid of the Common Core math in the curriculum. Josh says, agreed, Keith. I'm pretty good at math, and my kids said I was doing it wrong when I tried to help them with math. Told them that the way that they're being taught now is longer and more complicated. So I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I will tell you this. So that when that fight was happening in North Dakota with the Common Core plan, there was several people that were involved with that. They still have it. They said they got rid of it. They did not. They renamed it. I forget what they named it, Jason.
SEL.
There you go. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And as far as the Common Core math, I went and kind of did some research on that a long time ago. It was actually developed to emulate something that would help kids with autism. That is what it was developed for, and they do well with that because it's dealing with shapes and different things, so
right.
they can really use well.
Yeah.
My son actually does it better that way than he does traditionally because he has that slight autism. But as far as applying it to everybody, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Luckily, the school down here where my kids attended, the teachers didn't care one way or the other. They just wanted the right answers, which was good to see. But I guarantee you, up in Bismarck, it wasn't that way at all. And that's where these kids are going, that the guys are talking about here. We have a problem. I think the public school system is broken. If I lived in Bismarck, North Dakota, my kids wouldn't go to a public school. They would go to a private school or be homeschooled. It's just that simple. I very much don't like this DEI crap, and I just had a battle in Lemon, South Dakota with this. I won the battle. We'll see where the war goes, but I did change their health class. It's creeping in everywhere, and it's a problem, and I can't even imagine what it's like in the bigger schools in North Dakota, yet alone the small ones. And the only way you're going to get rid of that crap, you got to kick the feds out of your school.
Yeah.
The feds give so much money and filter so much money to the state as well to put into schools that they're dictating curriculum. So if you want to get rid of it, talk to your senators, talk to your reps, tell them to quit voting for that crap. In fact, I don't want a Department of Education at the federal level. It should have never been created to begin with. It's not a function of government. But that's where this problem comes from. It truly does. Go ahead.
Came from 1977, and the education system has went in a steep dive since 1977.
Yep. The performance goes down and the price goes up. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So,
and if you want to know why Kirsten is concentrating on the things she's concentrating on, just look at who she's getting her money from for her reelection campaign. She's getting Ted Dinnersmith is a big guy. He wants to bring a bunch of his curriculum ideas into this state. She took him on a tour of the state. He gave her $15,000. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why. And this will go. I make no bones about I'm supporting Measure 4, and this is just a good example of this. The kill North Dakota to keep it local people. They're out there saying, "Oh, you'll lose local control." We don't have local control right now.
No.
School boards are rubber stamps for federal and state money. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
They have
the only local control that's given in this state is given by the legislature, and I've said that over and over again. The legislature has even meddled into the political parties and taken away local control away from political parties, which is completely wrong.
Absolutely, they do. I couldn't believe this, Jace. Now we're really getting off subject, but when I first got involved with North Dakota's politics, coming up from South Dakota, and seeing the way this system works, I was like, seriously, the North Dakota legislature actually passed laws to dictate to the parties what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. That was a new one to me, because they don't do that in South Dakota, not like that, not like they got it here. I mean, there's actually North Dakota century code that says you'll place your rep and your senators on your executive committee. Really?
Yeah. Robert's rules. They're supposed to go by Robert's rules. Robert's rules tells exactly how it works. I mean, anybody, but see, nobody reads Robert's rules. Nobody reads the Constitution. Nobody reads century code. They all just wait for Superman to show up.
Well, Jason, it's something you said earlier is where Clay had mentioned in what you were talking about as well, about all the rules that for the paper and compared to the century rules and the Constitution are separate because they're not on the same page, and that, they don't mesh. Well, people are doing things and they're not being called on it. Mm-hmm. And it's being allowed to continue, and then it kind of becomes grandfathered in, even though it's a mistake or factually just wrong, or against the actual policy of the state. And it happens a lot of places where people just throw everything up there, and even if it's wrong, and don't care, and then people don't call them on it. That's the problem. People don't call him. Clay is pretty good at calling people on things. I like that. But
I just got to tell you this story. When we were doing the debate, they kept asking me the question first all the time. So finally I said something. So then the next time they asked Kirsten Baszler, and since I was talking about the Constitution a lot, her answer involved, my job duties come from the Constitution, and the legislature sets the boundaries and stuff like that. And so she talked, and then he said, would you like to add anything, Jason? And I said, yeah, I'd like to know what century code you used when you were threatening to take away the funding for the schools that weren't following the COVID rules. Okay. And, because what was happening at that time, the governor was completely doing illegal things, using executive orders to make fines to close businesses in both Minot and Willow City. And she admitted that the rules that she was getting to threaten the schools came from an executive order. And I said, oh, so that wasn't century code then,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's right.
And then she went in and she was trying to explain how, executive orders are just like the law. And it's just like, well, I hope they're written on good toilet paper. That's what I said.
Yeah, I have been told, well, they get enforced like the law. I said, only because you do it, only because you let it happen. This was with a sheriff. I said, you shouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They are not law. They are an executive order, and we have a checks and balances that are supposed to have. Hey, we got a 701 Nation says, keep it local. Treasurer is Chad Oban. And that org is against Measure 4. That's reason enough to vote yes on Measure 4. Couldn't agree more. If he's involved, you got to vote opposite. That guy's an idiot. So anyway,
I was just going to tell you this about the debate. Also, Chad Oban was one of the moderators. He forgot to mention. No, he forgot to mention at the beginning that he had already given $500 to Kirsten Baszler.
Wow. So he's the treasurer of Measure 4 to kill it, and he's also given money to Kirsten Baszler, but was your moderator. That's ironic.
Yeah, that's
yeah. And Kirsten Baszler gave money to stop Measure 4.
I'm sure she did. So I find it very interesting. And you and I talked a little bit about this, on the phone one day, Jason. But I'm gonna go down this road with Measure 4. I get so frustrated when I see the Association of Counties and the Association of this. They're all associations of government entities. One, I don't want them entities belonging to them. Okay, they're using my tax dollars to join associations or organizations that work against me every day. So I really don't care what those associations are, but every single one of them is well funded. And guess which ones are in? They all have come out in support of Measure 4, and they're all leeches on your tax dollar. Every single one of them associations represent entities that are supposed to work for us. And if you don't look at them kinds of things when you look at who's behind things, then you are the problem too. You're an uninformed voter. It's pretty simple to me.
It was so hard to believe how many outside education groups are giving money to stop Measure 4 outside the state. Outside the state.
I'm talking to NEA, the National Education Association.
Absolutely.
Huge donor to this. What the hell do they care? But they do, because it's power.
Well, if they read the Constitution, they would know that they're not supposed to be funded by property taxes in the first place.
The Constitution don't mean much to the NEA.
No.
The government, the federal or the state. So, hey, hold that thought, everybody. We better take a quick break and thank some sponsors. We're about halfway into the hour, and we better do our due diligence and thank our sponsors here.
Okay.
Lauer Auto Repair, located at 309 South Washington Street in Bismarck, North Dakota. Give them a call at 701-258-6308. The team of mechanics at Lauer Auto can take care of any problem your vehicle is having. And when you do business with Lauer, you can be assured you're doing business with a pro Second Amendment America First repair shop. There are plenty of other auto repair shops in the Bismarck-Mandan area. But why take a chance at patronizing a shop that might not have your beliefs at heart? Make no mistake. Lauer Auto is your pro Second Amendment repair shop. When you talk to the guys at Lauer Auto, don't forget to tell them that you heard they are a sponsor of Guns and the 701 and that you appreciate their support of our pro Second Amendment, pro North Dakota live stream and podcast. That's Lauer Auto Repair, 701-258-6308. 701-258-6308. Located 309 South Washington Street in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Experience the exhilaration of power in your hands at Bloodline Kinetics. Why Cerakote? Simply, it aids in firearm preservation while also giving your piece a unique look. Barrel threading, NFA laser engraving, bolt handle threading, mount, level, and bore, sight scope chamber rebarreling, and much more. Bloodline Kinetics is meant to reflect a long American lineage in gun ownership, who stand for the Second Amendment rights, Bloodline, and the science behind gun accuracy. Kinetics. To some, it's just a constitutional right that can go away. To us, it's in our American bloodline, and we believe it should stay that way. Here at Bloodline Kinetics, we understand that hunters, sportsmen, women, and gun owners should have a quality firearm. Stop and see us at 2008 Morrison Avenue 2 in Bismarck, North Dakota, 58504, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call 701-390-7997. Visit our website, bloodlinekinetics.com.
Ever tried catching a fish?
There we go.
All right, we are back. I hit the wrong one there, Mike, at first. But
I was wondering there. Oh, there you go.
I threw that one in there instead. We'll do the big one later.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were just before we went, we were talking about funding. We were talking where it comes from. We were talking about those that are involved in Measure 4 and fighting it. And the reason Measure 4 is related to this, let's just face it, Measure 4 gets property taxes fund a lot of the schools as well, which as you pointed out, isn't even supposed to be happening, is it, Jason?
Well, KillND come out with their pie graph and showed 40% of the money that's garnered from property taxes goes to schools, but it's actually 45 to 55%. And if you get north of Fargo, it's actually closer to 60% of the collected property taxes go towards the schools.
Wow. Well, and that's why I just brought up your website here for everybody.
If you listen to Trent Lewis in Nebraska, it's closer to 70% of the property taxes collected go there.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I was like, wow. I mean, this is insane. And as far as property tax, well, there's a lot of reason not to have it, but let's look at it this way. Property taxes are generated, of course, from property. Property ownership is going down. So it means there's a smaller group of people who are owning a bigger part of land, homes, houses, buildings, whatever it might be. That's just the real harsh reality of it. So you're basically wanting to shift all that burden onto a lot less people in the state of North Dakota.
Yep.
A, that isn't right. B, I shouldn't have to rent my property from the government. I'm all for, I think it ought to be funded by a user tax and let everybody pay, including out of state, in state, poor, rich, everybody who buys something, but that sales tax, that'd be the best way to do it, would have to be dedicated to funding the school. To me, that's the way that should be done. But go ahead and I just brought up your website, and it shows exactly what the state constitution says about it here. I'm looking at Article 8 right now.
If I can make a cool comment on your sales tax, you know, as a person gets older, they seem like they pay more property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But as they get older, they don't need to pay sales tax. Okay, because I can wear clothes that I had in my closet for 20 years if I want. My vehicle is 24 years old. I don't have to pay a lot of sales tax if I don't want to.
Yes.
And so the sales tax would be the best way to fund schools, because then the people who are buying the shoes, the balls, the books, all that stuff is paying for schools.
They'd be
That's
paying
all
for
that's all I've ever said.
You know, and I had this discussion already with a person that, well, we got to pay for our services, and the non-residents, they'll never pay for them services because they'll own the property. I go, well, I said, let me throw this one at you. My kids are about ready to leave the school system, and I got one graduating this year and then one in 3 years from that. Then I'm done. But I said, but I get the privilege to educate everybody else's kids on my dime for the rest of my life, as long as I own the property. I said, how fair is that? And they just kind of looked at me with this look. Like, I go, not only that, let's not forget, it's all like it's an unrealized capital gain. My property being the mill levies are capped. People, you need to understand this. Mill levies are capped. So they can't raise them. So what do? I don't know about you guys, but every single year, my property conveniently goes up and at least costs me another $700 to $1,000 every single year now, if not more. And it isn't like I have that value of my property sitting in the bank.
Nope.
It's not for sale. Actually, my property's worth this much because it's not for sale. But
well, the thing that bothers me is when people say, well, would you sell your property for that price? Or when they say, well, if you don't like it, then sell it. It's where are you going to move to? The moon?
Well, no, we've dealt with a lot of people down here in the South this past year when my wife was running for city council, and a lot of people said it. It says, I worked at this lumber yard for 35, 40 years, and I worked here for this long, and I've retired, and I budgeted so that I could live, on and on. But they said that the taxes on their homes and everything, and our big thing right down here right now is water. It's gone up twice in the last year, and it's going up one more time next year. It just continually rises, and so you're going to get priced out of your home that you spent your entire life paying taxes on and being a good citizen and everything else, just to turn around and say, why don't you just buy another home? Well, for what I can buy my house for, I can't buy another house to live in. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it just continually goes on, where we're not thinking of our elderly population that have worked hard to keep what they have, and they shouldn't be forced out of their home in their later years. If they're still functioning, they should be able to live there for as long as they're capable. But we don't talk about that very often. We don't talk about the fact
people lose their entire life savings and assets. But hey, I want to jump to this because this is a question from our listener Dan Brown. He says Jason implied that if he was a superintendent, he would have fired someone in Grand Forks over the wire fraud issue. Explain to us where the superintendent gets the authority to do this. Go ahead, Jason. I'll shoot that one to you. That I'm guessing that's right to you.
And like I said, if you want to rewind the tape, I didn't say I was going to go in and fire somebody. I was going to go in and ask who was going to be fired. Okay, because the thing is, and people don't understand this, the governor can actually take people off of your school board. They can take your superintendent out. They can take your sheriff out. He can take out anybody except for the treasurer, if you look it up under the Century Code. And so these people need to be held responsible. If there's $2.2 million that just disappears, don't you think that somebody should go in there and say, have you responsibly asked everybody who the problem was? Or is there some education we need to do on like wire transfers? What are you doing wire transfers for $2.2 million?
Well, to me, Jason, this would be an issue if I was the Department of Instruction's superintendent in the state of North Dakota. Because let's face it, it does not look well on the person that holds that office because they did nothing. Now, I would have at least, especially if I'm in the area, I would have wanted to meet with their superintendent and their school board president. I would really want those are the two people responsible for the school. And then I would want to see the business manager and ask what happened. Because generally it's a business administration minister or business manager say, please explain to me what happened here. Then if I'm not satisfied as the guy in charge, okay, of the state, it's kind of like when I ran the NRA, isn't it, Mike?
Yes.
I fired entire committees over this stuff. Anyway, I would ask then, why did this happen? Was it your fault? What was not, was there other acts? I would want to know the details. And if I wasn't satisfied with the answer, I would then request that the school board hold a meeting. And they'd probably have to go in executive session because it's going to have to deal with an actual employee and their employment. But I would ask for their resignation if it was me. Now, I don't have that power, but I definitely would make the inquiries and then I'd go from there. If I wasn't satisfied with that answer, then I'd go to the residents in that area and say, are you guys happy with over $2 million being lost of your money? You should have been at that school board meeting.
Here's a question for North Dakota. So on that situation, if you did that, does the school board have to do that in a public forum, or would they be allowed to kind of keep it behind closed doors to vote on whether to keep or get rid of those people? I mean, how would that work?
Well, I mean, they make agreements all the time that if you resign, they can keep it as secret as possible. But, if there's going to be an inquiry by the attorney general's office or state's attorney or whatever, then it's going to be as open as it can be, there's over $3 million that was missing from the partial school in the last few years. Okay. The Williston school for over a year did not reconcile their checkbook. Okay. I mean, these are things that I'm saying somebody needs to finally say, my God, if these guys, because who's doing the training for these school boards is the Department of Public Instruction. So, if there's training that needs to be done, I mean, if you can't reconcile your checkbook for a year, how do you know how much money's in there?
Right.
If you're off by a penny, you could be off by $1 million. Well, if you don't reconcile your checkbook, how far are you off?
You never know. Yeah, you're right. David Fetting brings up a good point here. He says, as a retailer, I see quarterly sales reports. I figure a 1.4 to 1.6 sales tax increase to the state would easily cover demands and needs of and e-commerce is captured, so no sales lost is possible. Well, and I agree. David and I have actually talked about this. That's kind of what I figured. It was, I took the average sales through at the high and the low, got my own mean average of sales in the state over a 5-year period. I figured a 1.5% sales tax would not just cover it. They'd bring in more than they're bringing in property taxes right now.
Right.
And again, that's because everybody pays it. Not just that, for the people on the Kill North Dakota side saying that the ag community isn't paying their fair share, because some of them guys say that. Well, I'll tell you right now, ag is the ones that you go buy a $250,000 combine. Okay. When you start adding that stuff up, that's going to be some huge sales tax bills, right? And they're going to definitely be paying their fair share, but just trickle it all the way down. I know what my small operation pays every year in expenses, and I can't imagine what the guys that got 10 times the acreage I got. So the ag people are going to probably be fine with it because we do have the income tax side of that with a Schedule F, which will help us out on that end. So it's a win-win that way. I can't imagine one ag producer that would not want to vote for Measure 4, but trust me, they're out there. They've been scared to believing that they're going to lose all their services, which I don't know about you guys. My roads suck out here in Sioux County, and my taxes keep going up. We have more than doubled, almost tripled in 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah,
and this is a little bitty town or little bitty county of Sioux, but that's a whole nother story.
We have over 200 miles of Wild Rice River Valley just in Richland County. That's just the Wild Rice River. So you can imagine how many bridges we have. And so, even with property taxes the way they are now, how are we supposed to replace them? Every bridge is $1 million nowadays.
Right.
And that's a great point, Jason, on as far as property taxes go. Right now, they're just doing it on evaluations based on, when they come out and do them. Or if like Sioux County, they just look at maps and hire an outfit out of Fargo to do them. But that's another story as well.
I said when I was county commissioner, when I was county commissioner, they were having a hard time getting money for roads. They were turning good paved roads back into gravel again. We had a road that was down south of Fairmont, North Dakota. If you know where that is, it's the first place in North Dakota where the sun shines every day, and called Lamar's, the town was. And they wanted to tear the road up. And the elevator said, if you tear the road up, we're going to abandon the elevator and we're leaving. But if you guys build this road back, we're going to build a $5 million elevator, and we don't want any economic assistance at all to do it. Okay. So we found the funding because the funding was out there. Okay. We not only had an 80,000 pound road when we were done, we had a 105.5 road when we were done. And they built a $7 million elevator by the time they were done. Well, and so trust me, I worked hard on a lot of things in my life to get done when other people said it couldn't be done.
Oh, yeah. It can be done. If there's a will, there's a way. There always is. So I'm going to get a couple of these comments here.
Yep.
Oh, Lynette, she says, she goes, why has funding schools become such an issue? I just don't understand. Well, Lynette, I'm not sure where you're coming from on it, if it's a bad thing or a good thing. I can tell you why it's become an issue. It's because the school funding has become so horrendously expensive. And and every time I turn around, I see a school wanting to build a new building, but they don't want a new school. They want a new school with the most finest athletic gym and accessories they can put in it. To me, your school doesn't need an architect except one to figure out how to build it with 4 walls, a good roof, and classrooms to do the job with some windows. Yeah. It does not have to be this architecturally beautiful structure that you wouldn't build yourself because you can't afford it in your budget. And that's probably what pisses me off the most when I see these new schools going up.
Well, I'm a big fan of the old Art Deco style, the Chicago skyline style and all that. But on the other side of that, that's an expensive thing that we can't afford right now. In Mitchell, we're building a new school. Well, they end up taking the gigantic Roman columns out of the front of the school because their budget just couldn't handle it. Well, I'm like going, good. Well, I'm like, if your budget can't handle it, don't put them in. But you know what? Build a school that's going to work.
It shouldn't be your wants. It should be what you need to do the job. Make it durable. Make it last for years again, like these old schools did, and get the job done. But no, you don't need columns. You don't need Aberdeen put in this huge rotunda and all this little fine. It was $1 million just for the freaking floor in that thing. I know what our bid was for lockers and bleachers. I mean, that was horrible what they did to the people in that area. You do not put your wants on there and your wishes. You spend as little of the people's money as you have to. That's what you should be looking at.
The town of Medina, you probably missed this because you were enjoying the 4th of July. But on the 3rd of July, they did the shovel, or what do they call that? The groundbreaking for a $2.9 million classroom onto the Medina school. Yes.
Just one classroom. Wow.
A classroom. I don't even think that includes a bathroom. And so they were all excited to do that. But who's going to pay for that? Because they probably could have brought in some portables. I go out to Bozeman now quite a bit because my daughter lives out there. And you wouldn't believe the beautiful schools that were built back in the 30s that look like they were built last week. And some of them have portables. Some of them have things, but you got to save money and you got to give the education to the kids. If I can just give you a quote from Kelly Armstrong from the Beck debate, he said, the answer to schools is not new buildings. It's class size and it's teacher experience. The cool part about my run this year, and I'm going to take credit for it, just so you know, but everybody's talking about it on the Beck TV. I've got 5 quotes here from the governor candidates and from one of the moderators talking about schools. They never talked about superintendent of public instruction before. Never.
No.
Never. Now everybody is.
I can tell you this, because you've got an actual candidate, running against Kirsten, which is a good thing. Measure 4 is in the limelight. The reason is there's 2 different things happening this time, and those are the 2 things. So everyone is talking about it. And I can tell you right now, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. whether it's your opposition or Measure 4's opposition, look at the money, where it comes from, and that will tell you everything you need to know about that particular side's ideology. Measure 4, like I said, I'm for it. I voted for it. There is money there to take care of this. It's not a hard issue, but there might need to be hard choices made. Absolutely. And there are, and there's easy solutions to this, but until you tell the legislature, no, you've been there, Jason, they'll keep spending, won't they?
Absolutely. Well, they're bringing a $300,000 bus up to, I think it's Harvey, North Dakota, if I'm not wrong. A $300,000 bus. Who's going to maintain that thing?
Wow.
You know, and if they bring one, they're going to bring more.
Well,
the good thing about that bus is it's actually diesel offset, so it can run on diesel for a little bit when the electricity gives out.
Yeah.
So most of these buses that they're giving to the schools now cost $300,000, and they're all electric.
Well, we've had to talk about electric before too, and it's like, you know, I take the novelty in that. I've looked at motorcycles just for giggles and stuff that are electric because we're around town. But you know, this is South Dakota, and the one thing they don't have figured out on these electric vehicles is that when you get into serious weather like we've got, that halves the lives of your charge. So, hey, I don't want to be out driving around in the snow and end up stuck somewhere because, you know, I don't have a long enough extension cord.
Lynette says, my vote is you, Jason. Thanks for coming on to talk about it. There you go. There was an undecided. You just decided.
Here now, I'll probably lose her vote when I say this, but you know, like Camilla was saying, they have all the hookups for the computers in them. They got all the hookups for the headphones, these electric buses. It's like, yeah, who would want to freeze to death because you ran out of battery power?
Yeah.
Well, here, I think we were on to something more when we were using hybrid, a fuel-powered motor to produce electricity. That, to me, that made the most sense. You could get good mileage. Plus, I hate to tell everybody, but I love electric vehicles in concept, but not what they're pushing.
No.
The coal mines have had this technology for decades. The trains have had it. Them are diesel generators that produce electricity to the electric motors because you get the most torque and the most efficiency out of an electric motor. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's the best of both worlds. Burn your diesel generator at a very, very reduced rate per hour, and then produce the electricity, put it to your wheels, and get the best efficiency. I mean, why in the hell are we going to all electric? Well, we know why. Follow the money.
Yeah. And, you know, that's 1920s technology. That was General Motors.
Yeah.
It's been around forever.
Yeah.
It really has. It's been around forever. I mean, like I said, I watched the coal mines and them big trucks because you can't, essentially they went to that because they were busting drivetrains. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Them trucks were so big, you literally couldn't really keep a drivetrain, a traditional drivetrain in a truck. So what was their solution? Diesel generator with electricity to electric motors, and problem solved. And we've never looked back. To me, I mean, my uncle has a Tesla and I've been in it. It's cool. It's a fun toy, right? The center of gravity is low because it's so heavy with the batteries in there. And I mean, you can take any, I bet you money there's not much out there can take a Tesla off the line because it's pure power now, complete efficiency. So electricity isn't bad, but the way they're pushing it by charging your vehicle, putting it in a battery, then it runs out. I mean, really?
Yeah.
There's way better way to do it. I would love to see a tractor produced like that myself. But yeah, getting back to the school stuff, I know they're doing that with these buses. There's big incentives for them to do it. But what happens when you got to replace it, maintain it, fix it, whatever it might be? It's not a good gift. It's really not.
It's not a good gift.
So let's get into a few more of these. And I thought Gene had a great one here. And I remember this fight in South Dakota. He says, who remembers in South Dakota when the lotto was supposed to save education? So when they passed that in South Dakota, yes, that was a big thing. Vote for the South Dakota lottery because it's going to fund the schools. Well, guess what? They didn't say how much. And there isn't very much goes to the schools. Probably.
Well, you know, measure 3 this year. Okay, they want to use less of the earnings and stuff like that. Make sure that it builds higher. That was actually supposed to be used to reduce property taxes, and that's never reduced property taxes in the state of North Dakota either. They're just giving it to their buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, follow the money, right?
Yeah.
Follow the money, see where it's going, see who the buddies are. And then Keith, he says it's always easier to spend everyone's money when it's not yours. That's right. OPM, other people's money. When that said, oh yes, Mandan has done this. I'm guessing that must be the school when we were talking about the schools.
Mandan built a huge school this year, and it's really something. Yep. Huge.
Really something that's really expensive.
I think it's $160 million, if I'm not wrong. The cost of it was.
You know, I have no problem building structures for the job at hand. If you need more room for more students, that's different. But when you go and waste it on these architecturally beautiful monstrosities with gyms that they probably didn't need, I notice every school now, whether they've got enough gym space or not, they want another one, and they want another one, and they want another one. And as far as sports go, we're at sports, but
we're the same way on that.
I just flat out don't believe that that's a necessity. Okay, it's an extracurricular activity like any other, and they don't fund the other extracurricular activities at that level ever.
You know,
I know that for a fact. Look at the drama clubs or the theater. You know, name your poison. Really.
Well, they fund themselves. I mean, that's the thing is they're out there raising money for themselves.
That's what I'm getting at.
But football does not, and you know, and neither does baseball as well, and there's a few other sports or basketball. But you know, I don't know. Somewhere along in the 70s and 80s, we got this mind frame that we've got to have the very best teams and the best coaches, the best this, because this is our kids' way out of here. Well, you know, that was your mistake that you put that on your kid, that your way out of here is some mindless sport. I mean, that with a twist of a knee, you know, he's out or she's out for good or whatever, and disposable heroes. And I'm like going, you know, we put so much emphasis on that sports thing. And it's like we pay no attention to education. We pay no attention to the education part of it.
They threw the shooting sports out of the schools.
Yeah.
And that's a skill you actually can learn and use the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But no, we don't want to do that one. Yeah, well, David Fetting, he brings up, and that's a good one, is the state school trap teams, or you know, what about them? So I'm not sure how it's working up here in North Dakota. I know there's several of them that we started through the NRA program. Yep. Also, ROTC started that way and then built on that.
Right.
I know there's a lot of trap leagues going into these high schools. I think they are funded separate from the school. Do you know anything about that, Jason?
I don't know where the funding comes from. I know they have a lot of archery and stuff like that too. I mean, there's a lot of different things they can do. I just tell you what, hand-eye coordination is something that we need to teach, and trap is a good one for hand-eye coordination. Mm-hmm. Archery is a good one for hand-eye coordination. You know, that's why they're getting away from this cursive writing, you know, because they don't want to teach hand-eye coordination.
No,
it's not good. We need to teach cursive writing.
And not just that, Jason. I'm going to say this text that came in here. Says, the Medina school expansion is adding 4 classrooms and 4 breakout rooms, whatever they are. So that's just from Dan there. But as far as you're talking about the cursive writing, think about this too. All of our founding documents, how are they written? They're written in cursive. A lot of things are written in cursive. So if you don't teach cursive anymore, eventually you'll have a generation that can't read it. And then they'll have to go to print or something that was done typed out or on a computer, which could be edited and they'd never know it.
You might as well
call it. Could be updated at midnight. Could be updated at midnight. You wouldn't even know it.
You know what?
Go ahead.
We could call it a spy language, because sooner or later that's the only people that know how to read it, you know. So.
Well, I've already run into, and I caught this in Lemon, we got rid of that book. I do watch, and I do, like you said, Mike, I call them out. I don't really care. I'll fill that school board room meeting, and they know I can do it. I've done it. But I found a book in there. It was their history book or their government book, and nobody even reviewed it. It just pisses me off when the school boards don't really review the curriculum. They just rubber stamp it. Yeah. And they were teaching that the Second Amendment out of this book was not an individual right. It was a right of the state's National Guard. And that's how it was written. And I discovered it because I happened to be subbing there. And I'm going through this crap going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, I threw the book out the window. Luckily, I was there for the rest of that year as the teacher was out for a month. And I found the old stuff that my old government teacher was still in the room. And we started going over the Constitution like he did. One thing I can tell you for sure, in that month, them kids learned real constitutional history.
Oh yeah.
And of course, I don't have no fancy degree, so how could I teach kids, But
No,
amazing, I did, and they loved it. We had fun doing it. I didn't make it boring. It was fun, and they had fun. And I still see them kids today as adults in the area, and they go, "Oh man, I remember your government class. That was great." So it can be done.
It's just too bad in our country. Now, I've taken my kids out to Washington, D.C. for probably a total of 3 weeks, if not closer to 4. And we've went everywhere. I mean, we went to Mount Vernon. We've hit every site. We did every tour, the morning, the afternoon, the Segway, the night, everything, And if you don't teach your history, you're just going to forget it,
Yeah.
Well, that says that, nope, you didn't lose her. So there you go.
Yeah.
Still vote for you. No, you're right. And history is so important. That's why they want to do away with it. I know they've got these STEAM programs or STEM whatever the hell they call it, science, technology. That's fine and dandy. I think you need to have that too. But I'm telling you right now, if you're not teaching your history of your country or the history of your local area, the history of your state, you're in trouble because you learn from your mistakes. Not everything in our history has been great. We all know that, but we learned from it. At least we tried to.
Right.
When you quit teaching it, which they have really downgraded what they teach, guess what you're starting to see? A lot of the mistakes that were happening in the 60s and 70s again, because they're not teaching what happened. They're teaching a revised version of it, but they're not actually teaching what happened in those time frames. And then, of course, if you don't teach it, you're bound to repeat it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Dan Brown says the high school trap teams I am aware of receive zero school funding. And I think you're right, Dan, because I remember even when we were all involved in the NRA programs, I remember the grants that were coming through requests, and we funded a lot of them because there was no other funding. And then they had their own sources of, they did their own fundraisers. I know like the hockey team in Bismarck does a great big gun raffle, and that's a lot of their funding, or the hockey club of Bismarck, whatever that is. So, I think you're absolutely right, Dan. I don't think there's too much funding. It's just like a lot of the rodeo teams, which are part of this high school rodeo association, but they get little to no funding from the actual school.
Well, you remember the team that we had, the ROTC team down in Sioux Falls, and we finally got the approval to put a new trap team in there and everything like that. But they told us, it says they want us to fail so that they can just wash their hands of us, because they're allowing it in, but they want it to fail. So they weren't going to help in any way, shape or form. And that's the way a lot of these programs are. So they have to raise funds on their own. And there's nothing wrong with raising funds on your own.
And we granted them a pretty good grant to get their foot in the door. Keith says the social studies book in Glen Allen ends with George H.W. Bush. It's old. Yeah, he's not.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, I've heard this so many times out on the stump, and I heard it again today. People are like, "Well, if this is against the Constitution, then how come it hasn't been fixed yet?" Okay, and I told them, in North Dakota, for example, you can't find an attorney that isn't somehow affiliated with the government, so that they always have a conflict of interest.
Right.
So first you got to find an attorney from out of state to come in, and then it's going to cost you over $25,000 at least to run a case up to the Supreme Court to fix it. And so, what was it, 1968? You guys probably know this better than I do, where they passed that law that said that if you were under 21, you couldn't buy a handgun.
1960 Gun Control Act, 1968.
Yeah, and so why hasn't that been fixed yet? And it's the same reason. We all know that it's against the Constitution, but why hasn't it been fixed yet? And these are the things that I want to work on. Not the handgun law. Don't get me wrong, but these are the things that I want to fix, because they haven't had the money or the willpower to take this to the Supreme Court to fix how the state funds schools. And that's what we're going to do on day one. We're going to the Supreme Court and
And
it's going to be
absolutely,
fixed.
it absolutely should happen. And like I said, I was looking at your website, and you've got it right there. It's Article 8. Then you go down here, and you've got Article 10 in there, finance and public debt. Finally, North Dakota Constitution states in Article 10, Section 1, that the Legislative Assembly shall be prohibited from raising revenue to defray the expenses of the state through a levying of a tax on assessed value of real or personal property. It isn't much clearer than that, is it, Jason?
No, it is as clear as a bell.
And you'll get people, and I hear it on KFYR. I hear it on both shows. They talk about Measure 4 in different capacities, and both of them shows they talk about it on one and say, "Here it is, clear cut." People call in and go, "Nope, that's not in there." Yes, it is in there. It really is in there.
Yeah. Well, Kirsten Baszler during the debate, she said, just so you know, Jason, it's gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said you can use property taxes for schools. And I said to her, "What year was that?" And she wouldn't answer. And I said, "What case was it?" But I said, they'll just say anything. My bill to get rid of the mill levy for schools, which got me redistricted out to Watford City, she said on that debate that I actually pulled that bill. I said, "Kirsten, are you serious? They voted on it on the Senate floor. How could I pull it?" I said, "No, you pulled that bill, Jason."
She would know. She's probably drunk at the time from her party and her binging the night before. I know you can't say that, Jason. That's fine, but I'll call her out.
But Clay
she's
can.
an alcoholic.
No, but I can call
you. Yeah, she has plenty of DUIs. Luckily, she's got a hell of a lawyer because she never gets convicted, and her son is down that pathway. What a hell of a role model to be a DPI, right?
Well, look, I mean, we started off the show with the number one fact. I mean, on top of all that, is that if you can't answer the simple question of what do you do for a living, then there's a problem. And as if you don't know or you shirk answering, then there's a problem. People ask Clay, "What do you do?" "I'm a rancher and I do this and I do this." They ask me, and I do radio. I do this.
I'm a rabble rouser now.
Rabble rouser. Oh, you're garbage. Remember?
That's right. I was called garbage by Kamala the other by Biden. That's right.
That's right.
Brian Lauer, he says history is only there to learn from, can never be denied or rewritten. Too many think we have any control over it. And he's right. We are there to learn from it. That goes back to what we were talking about.
I just gonna tell Mike what I do for a living. I'm semi-retired now, so I just cut myself down to driving semi. And I can drive 70 hours a week according to the DOT, and that's what I do. So I'm semi-retired right now.
Yeah,
because I used to have three jobs, and I worked a lot more than 70 hours a week. I can tell you that.
And that's getting harder too to get a CDL, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down about government regulation.
There's no reason in God's green earth that if you can't drive a semi, you can't go to the place and take your CDL. You know this, okay? Yeah. If you want to be a lawyer, you can go and take the bar exam. You don't have to go to college. So why do you have to pay $5,000 to get a CDL in this state?
I agree.
That's unbelievable.
So JD says, I think our next governor might be interested in having school districts fund shooting sports. I think you're right, Jamie.
There you go.
We've interviewed Kelly enough that we know he really is the real deal when it comes to Second Amendment and guns. And
I thought you were talking Merle Pepcorn. I thought no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Corn anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, I look at the CDL stuff and it's insane now what it takes to get a CDL. It truly is. And
it shouldn't be that way.
And that's why we don't have the truck drivers we used to. People are saying the hell with it. Between the electronic logging devices and all the other regs that are coming down, they just kind of said, you know what?
Yeah.
I can sell my truck and retire and I'm done. And that's what they're doing.
Well, here's an easy fix for bus drivers. Okay. And I talk to people about this and they really think it's nice. All right. If you're a farmer, all right, and you stay within 150 miles of your farm, you don't need a Class A license. All right. So if you're a bus driver and you don't ever take a team more than 150 miles away, okay, say you don't drive more than 30 miles away from the school, why do you need to have a CDL?
You don't, as far as I'm concerned, especially.
Well, I'm just saying, what would people be open to that? I mean, you know,
I mean, guys like you and me with common sense would be, but I guarantee you there's going to be a whole faction of people that are going to come out and, oh my God, the safety. Really? There ain't even seatbelts on most of these buses in our school district.
No.
But don't give me the safety crap, because it's no different than me hauling a bunch of kids in my crew cab pickup. Just more.
You know why I got my CDL back in 1989? Because it didn't take much more. I was going to get my bus permit.
Yeah.
Okay. And it wasn't going to take much more to get my CDL. So I thought, well, I'll just get my CDL.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
And that's why I got it.
Yeah.
I've been driving semi since 1989 because of that.
Well, that says it's a war on America, Jason, and that's the truth. It is. It's been an assault on us for decades. It started a long time ago, and they do.
Doug's got a good quote right there, real quick. Put Doug's quote up there.
Says there are people that are driving RVs that should not be on the road.
And they do not have CDLs, and that drives me nuts.
Not just that, they're driving a class. What do they call them? Class C RVs. They're the big ones, the big motor.
Mhm.
They're pulling a car and a boat sometimes behind them.
And a boat.
Don't need a CDL.
But in Richland County, they passed an ordinance that said you can't have a truck train in Richland County. So what is that? Isn't that a truck train when you have a camper, a car, and a boat?
Yeah.
I think, wouldn't you? I mean, it's more than doubles and triples. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's a quarter after the hour. We are going to go take a quick break. We kind of been going a little bit long on that, but this is podcasting, not radio, so we can do that.
And we can.
I hope people are enjoying it.
I think they are. I'm watching the viewership, and it hasn't went down, so that's
pretty good.
All right, guys, take a quick break, and let's thank our sponsors, and we'll come back, and we'll wrap this up here in a little bit.
Yep.
Lauer Auto Repair, located at 309 South Washington Street in Bismarck, North Dakota. Give them a call at 701-258-6308. The team of mechanics at Lauer Auto can take care of any problem your vehicle is having. And when you do business with Lauer, you can be assured you're doing business with a pro Second Amendment America First repair shop. There are plenty of other auto repair shops in the Bismarck-Mandan area. But why take a chance at patronizing a shop that might not have your beliefs at heart? Make no mistake. Lauer Auto is your pro Second Amendment repair shop. When you talk to the guys at Lauer Auto, don't forget to tell them that you heard they are a sponsor of Guns and the 701 and that you appreciate their support of our pro Second Amendment, pro North Dakota live stream and podcast. That's Lauer Auto Repair, 701-258-6308. 701-258-6308. Located 309 South Washington Street in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Experience the exhilaration of power in your hands at Bloodline Kinetics. Why Cerakote? Simply, it aids in firearm preservation while also giving your piece a unique look. Barrel threading, NFA laser engraving, bolt handle threading, mount, level, and bore, sight scope chamber rebarreling, and much more. Bloodline Kinetics is meant to reflect a long American lineage in gun ownership, who stand for the Second Amendment rights, Bloodline, and the science behind gun accuracy. Kinetics. To some, it's just a constitutional right that can go away. To us, it's in our American bloodline, and we believe it should stay that way. Here at Bloodline Kinetics, we understand that hunters, sportsmen, women, and gun owners should have a quality firearm. Stop and see us at 2008 Morrison Avenue 2 in Bismarck, North Dakota, 58504, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call 701-390-7997. Visit our website, bloodlinekinetics.com.
Ever tried catching a fish with your bare hands or hunting a deer with a stick? Don't be that guy. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we've got all the hunting and camping gear you need. We're your one-stop shop for outdoor adventure.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Check us out at mandansportinggoods.com, or better yet, stop in to 210 East Main Street, Mandan, North Dakota. Mandan Sporting Goods, where the outdoors meets functionality. Store hours, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Closed Sunday. Take up arms at Mandan Sporting Goods. Your adventure starts here.
Looking for the best gun gear for every and any situation? Little Angry Man Arms LLC has you covered. Top-notch guns from top-name brands like Winchester, Glock, Sig Sauer, and Ruger to essential extras from Magpul, Streamlight, Hollow, Sun Optics, and more. Little Angry Man Arms LLC have everything to make your shooting adventures a success. Visit littleangrymanarms.com today and gear up for your next big hunt, competition, or home defense. Don't miss out on our exclusive deals. Little Angry Man Arms LLC, based in Trail City, South Dakota, your ultimate hunting partner.
Yeah, hey, look, I got the moves like Michael, the flow like Aubrey, walk around thinking I'm a prince like Saudi. Mismatched Converse, t-shirts tucked in, know my worth, can't tell me nothing. White Nikes, albino, pink up my stilo, head to the top, bottom line is a motto.
All right, we are back again. Thanks to all our great sponsors and Lauer Auto Repair, my favorite place right there in Bismarck, 309 South Washington Street, 701-258-6308. And they're down there on, you can't beat it, South Washington Street. That's easy to find. So next time you're there, Jason, stop and say hi to Axe. He's a Second Amendment supporter. If you need an oil change, he's the guy to go to.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
And of course, we'd love to say thanks as well to our other sponsors, Bloodline Kinetics, Little Angry Man Arms down there in Trail City, South Dakota, down in your state there, Mike. And of course, Mandan Sporting Goods.
Yep.
Stop by and say hi to all of them and get a great deal.
I was just going to give you this quote from Steve Bakken so you can tell where people are in this state. Okay, he said if the state had fully funded common schools K through 12, Measure 4 would probably not be on the ballot. He said that during the governor debate on Beck TV.
That's actually probably a true statement.
That's amazing. It's amazing that he said that.
Yeah, but we won't go down what he's supporting the pot bill or the pot measure, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But to me, Jason, property tax is probably the most outrageous and egregious tax on the books, because
it is.
I always look at it like this, and I always explain it that it's renting from the government, and I always get told, "Oh, well, not really." Yes, it is.
Oh, yes,
if I don't pay it, they will send men with guns. Okay, meaning law enforcement or whoever, and kick me off of my property and take it, and then go ahead and resell it or whatever the hell they want to do with it. That goes against our founding. Private property ownership was one of the bases of our founding. We did not want a feudal system, and that's why I don't believe in property taxes. But once you get your stuff paid for, it should never be able to be taken away from you for failure to pay a tax on it. It's just outrageous.
Well, and not only that, but if you don't let them in your house in North Dakota, they can just raise it to whatever they want to, and then you can come fight it out. And that's not right.
Well, no, to me, that's like saying you're guilty before you're not.
I want to go in their house. I want to go in their house.
Property taxes are, and here Doug said it right here. He says it is an unrealized gains tax. Absolutely, exactly what it is. Yeah. And they want that. We've seen the commies and the Marxists. Kamala's out there. She wants to have an unrealized.
Wants that on your 401k, whether you make money or not.
Well, she wants it on anything that's capital gains that like I don't have a 401k. I got a different retirement type investment thing. But my investment accounts alone would be, that would kill me. I don't have that money in my pocket unless I actually take it out and sell the shares or do something else with it. Then I don't have that money in the bank, but I'm supposed to pay a tax on it. Wow.
But I said at that rate, then they would penalize you for taking it out, and then you have to pay tax on that also, and then you have to pay the tax.
Well, not
so you get hammered three ways from Sunday.
Well, yeah, mine are mostly dividend type things where I get a dividend back on them, so I'm still paying income tax on them. But yeah, they still go up in value, and it's just a dumb idea, and it's another way to confiscate wealth, plain and simple.
Right. Well, there you go on that. That's a good one right there. And the one thing about taxes is that they put them on and they never take them off.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
We put tax over top tax over top tax, and that's why fuel, I think, is as expensive as it is, because we just got the tax after tax after tax, and it never expires, never sunsets.
So, JD says in PE class, students have to take worthless shit like golf. Will Jason advocate to have students take hunter safety or gun education in the curriculum, or physical education? Good question.
I was one of the last groups probably that took BB guns, and we actually went to state, and they did a great job of teaching us how to shoot with BB guns. My dad never showed me how to shoot a gun. I went out and started shooting my gun myself because I had the ability after that to be safe around a gun, know. And I said, even now, I mean, nobody's taught me how to shoot the guns that I have. I go out and shoot them myself. So,
well, I was an example of take a kid hunting and shooting. My dad didn't hunt and shoot. He didn't take me out. No. And one of my buddy's dads took me along with him. And that's how that happened. And now I'm you know what I am now. I'm a big advocate, right? And
but I'm all for having hunter safety in schools. And that's where they teach it in the Wyoming school. That's where they teach it.
And I think it's a great idea.
We had a program that we worked on years ago that this never really took off, but it was basically find somebody, and take them hunting, or take them fishing, or take them hiking, or take them something out of their comfort zone that they don't normally do, and expose them to nature, to the world, to everything, and get them out there. And
Make a First. Remember that was
Make a First. Yeah, could have been a great program. And
of course, it didn't get the funding it needed, and then it fizzled out. Or like we had YHEC, which was the Youth Hunter Education.
Oh yeah, that was a great one too.
That was stuff sponsored through the NRA. But here's another big divide, because the NRA was putting it together. You couldn't get the game and fish departments to get on board with it.
Yeah, and makes no sense.
We got our own program. Well, no, it's not really. This is a little different. That's probably the biggest problem I see, is that whether it's school, whether it's game and fish, whether, name your entities. Nobody can work together, and they all think that they have the best idea because it came from them.
Right.
And it's no different in school. We see that with teachers, with administrators. Oh, no, that won't work. We can't do that here. We're not going to let this group in, but we're going to let that group in. And it's all because of their own ideologies or their own experiences.
And that goes back to the failing up, because those people will continue to do that, and then the programs they implement will fail, and then they get transferred somewhere else at no pay loss whatsoever, and we never see them again. But they're still doing the same thing, but somewhere else now, and that's a government thing right there, just failing up.
So I don't know what you've heard about any of this, Jason, but JD says schools pretty much teach that guns are bad. Anything that would put guns in a positive light should be pushed by the superintendent. And I know what he's getting at. I don't know how bad it is in the schools in North Dakota. My kids are down here in South Dakota because that's the closest school to us. I know down there it's not happening, thank goodness. That's probably has a lot to do with because I live in this area, and let's just say I'm not a quiet person. I call things out when I see it.
Yeah.
Now I can't, like I said, I can't speak for North Dakota, but I can tell you this: my cousin, who was going to school in a Twin Cities suburb school, one time asked me if I was a bad person when he visited. I go, "What are you talking about?" He saw my gun cabinet and asked me if I was a bad person because he was taught that only bad people have guns. So I know it happened in the bigger cities. Yeah. And that's horrible. That's even being taught. What the hell does that have to do with actual education?
It doesn't have anything to do with that. You go a generation older than me. There was a guy that used to be a bus driver, and he would let a kid bring a 20 gauge shotgun on the bus every day because he knew that the family was suffering, and that this kid, he'd drop him off and he would hunt on the way home and take food home to his family. And that's the way it used to be years ago. Everybody had guns in the back windows of their pickup. Everybody had all that stuff. And, they didn't even lock the doors.
Hell, Jason, my shop project, one of them was refinishing a couple of my old 22s that my grandfather owned. They were Model 36s. They were Springfields. I took them and had them in my locker. And nobody even said nothing. There wasn't even a second thought given to it.
Yeah.
And I graduated in 1993, so it's not that long ago. Really.
No, not too long.
You graduated in 1993. I graduated in 1983.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So,
just so
we
you
were
know.
still normal 10 years after that, at least.
I was more worried about my principal's finger because he actually left a spot on my chest about right here. You know, you can't see it. But I was more worried about that than anything because we had discipline in schools.
We did too.
And it's sad. It's sad that they don't have discipline anymore in schools.
No, it's like the inmates run the asylum anymore. And
If I can tell you this story, I have a neighbor, and
Yep.
she's my age. She's got a master's degree, and she teaches yet. And she says that SEL is the most important thing that they can teach at school right now, which is social emotional learning. And I said to her, social emotional learning starts on day one. Okay, it doesn't start 5 years later. You can't have a child that doesn't understand social emotional learning until they're 5 or 6 years old. How do you do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, we see, I've got family that was in social services, and then you got kids that don't get, the emotional learning in the family in the early days. And of course it affects them for their whole lives. So, I mean, it's got to start from day one for all the kids, for them to be, shown what's right, and it's never too late, but you just got to, show them what's right. Yeah.
It starts at home on day one. It absolutely does.
You guys have probably never heard this story, but my mom was killed when I was 2.5 back in 1967 in a car accident. I actually survived the car accident. And so I lost a brother and 2 sisters and my mom, who was pregnant at the time. And there was 2 brothers and 2 sisters that were in school, and they lived because they were in school. And so my dad raised 5 children. All right. And so there was no daycares in 1967. There was no babysitters. There was no maids. There was no nothing. My dad took me to the bank, to the insurance company, to coffee, everywhere. And I'll tell you what, I did the same thing with my kids. And if you know anything about my daughter, you'll know what she does right now at the age of 27, which is almost unheard of, because she can talk to anybody, and social emotional learning starts on day one.
And you're right. And not just that, they learn skills. They learn a lot of skills, not just the people skills. They learn a lot of things by doing that. They learn they learn right from wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's missing a lot, especially in some of these single parent homes where there's absolutely no Christian basis whatsoever in their life. And that's been a problem. We kicked God out of the schools, and look where it got us. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And for all of the naysayers that say that it's a separation of church and state, nowhere does it say that in the Constitution. Nowhere. All it says, there won't be a state-funded church, essentially. It doesn't even really say that, but that was the intent. And there is no separation of church and state. You do have freedom of religion, which is one of the 5 in the First Amendment. And it doesn't say freedom from it. It says freedom of it. So this crap that it can't be put in a school, it's crap. It's based on a freaking judge's ruling, and they were wrong. And it took how many years to overturn Roe versus Wade? Well, maybe we can overturn that one someday too. I hope. So let's get to a couple of comments here. Go ahead.
I said, I don't know if you noticed, I got my haircut today, and I got probably one of the worst haircuts I've ever received in my whole life, and it's going to take probably 6 months to grow out. But I had to go to a new hair cutter. Yeah, I never wear a hat, but I probably will be now. But I had to go to a new hair cutter, and the thing was, she was telling me about her life because she had a little girl there, has serious ADHD. The daycares won't allow the kid in the daycares. Okay. So she was working at the post office. She said she had a 6-figure income in Breckenridge, Minnesota. Wow. All right. And she quit. She bought a house. She became a hair cutter, and she takes care of her kid during the day, And so she would apologize if she had to run over to her kid for a little bit. I said, you don't have to apologize to me, for heaven's sakes. I said, what you're doing is awesome. It's awesome because they're taking responsibility for their children, which is what I did when I went to the farm. My wife would say at the time, you taking the kids with to the farm? I said, absolutely, we're taking the kids to the farm.
Why wouldn't you?
I wouldn't leave them in daycare. I can tell you that.
No, that'd be the last place I'd want to leave a kid. So, okay, I'll get to a few of these comments here. David, this is kind of a funny one. I love the argument that inanimate objects are dangerous. Given Steven Seagal and a credit card and see what happens. That's a good one. Doug Wolf says, the left will never let anything NRA related into the schools. You're very right about that, Doug. And when we had our SHIELD program, that was after the schools were being shot up. And by the way, there's stats on that. It isn't happening more often. It's being reported more often, but I'm not going to go into that tonight. I have those stats.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. NRA came out with School Shield, and I mean, very seldom would they take you up on the grant. We actually funded that. Remember that, Mike?
Yeah, I do.
We funded it in North Dakota, too. And then you see them build buildings with big glass fronts. That's a stupid thing to do. I mean, seriously, but that's a whole nother. We've talked about that on this show, too. JD says that you're 100% right. A rainbow flag is perfectly acceptable and, in fact, pushed, but anything from the NRA does, which actually defends your civil rights, is shunned by a school system. Yeah, and I don't know how much of that's happening, Jason, in North Dakota schools. I know it is not happening in Lemon School as far as the rainbow pride crap. Thank goodness, but it's a small town, so maybe there is advantages about living in small towns still.
Well, I'll just say this. We started out the show talking about, the armed first responder. And so to get that passed in the legislature took a lot. Okay.
Yes, it did.
And to know that there's only one school in North Dakota that's doing that has to come from people putting their finger on it or something.
Well, you got to get the parents. You know how many parents I've talked to about this and they didn't even know this existed?
Yep.
Because the school boards don't talk about it. The schools don't talk about it. I will say, though, when I go read this, and some of the requirements I see on this, which I think are bullshit, this could be revised. But I'm guessing it's like everything else when we pass Stand Your Ground. You put forth the bill you can pass, not the one you want. I can tell you the one that we wanted, one of Jeff Magrum and I helped Jeff with that, and we presented it. We did it on purpose because we knew we could pass Ben Koppelman's bill as the compromise. So that was our goal.
Yep.
So we presented the other one knowing that it would get the libs and even some of our rhino Republicans. This is not the Republican state everybody thinks it is.
Yeah.
But we did get one passed, so now we can make adjustments to it and work on it. But I think, honestly, this could be revisited again. This is 2019. There's a lot of things could change. I think this is a great start. This is South Dakota's bill. It was passed this year. Actually, it was amended, and this is Senate Bill 203. It passed. It was signed. This is great. This is how we should do it when it comes to schools, because it's people that have their enhanced concealed permits already. There's a lot of things in here that allow people to be resource officers or just private people defending that take training and also possess stuff. This is way better. And this is probably the goal we should reach for. That's my opinion.
I'd be willing to talk to you about it.
I mean, this is the one. I can email you this. This is great what they did down there in South Dakota, and that got passed this year. So, I come from South Dakota. I helped on a lot of that legislation through the years, and that's probably why it's so good. Mike remembers Stace Nelson. In fact, you introduced me to him. He was a champion of the Second Amendment, and then when I worked for the NRA and wasn't doing anything with the South Dakota shooting sports, and I went to the NRA, we passed a lot of great legislation in South Dakota.
And it didn't happen overnight. It took a while. It
took a long time, but it was easier to pass it in South Dakota with fewer Republicans, but they were actually conservatives, and there were more of them than Democrats than it has been in North Dakota with a super majority of quote Republicans, but they're not conservative.
No.
And
I will tell you this, and I don't want to shock you out of your chairs, but I start every morning. with Greg Belfridge at 6:00 in the morning out of Sioux Falls. And
I don't know who that is.
Oh, don't you? He's on 1320 KELO out of Sioux Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great man. He's got a great show. He talks to people in Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota. A lot of the stuff that's coming our way is coming through there.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time.
Might have to tune into that one.
Yeah, and so I just said he's got a great show, and he puts on people like Joni Ernst from Iowa and just all kinds of people.
Cool.
And
and that's what you got to do. You got to stay informed, and it's absolutely the way. I mean, it's the only way you're going to accomplish anything, to be informed.
yeah. So
And we
that's
talk about
how I stay in. That's how I stay informed. Is I listen to stuff all day long. You know, Ben Shapiro, all kinds of stuff.
I do like America's Real Voice, or Real America's Voice. That's a good network that's not really on cable systems for the most part, but you can get it online. You can get it on their app. I mean, you can get it on different like Dish and Dish Network type systems, but it's a good one, and they've got a lot of great programming on there too that you don't hear anywhere else.
Yep.
In fact, they cover this border problem. Oh, Ben Burkwat is awesome. I mean, that guy, he's out there.
I got to tell Mike this, since he knows about this KELO. I got to go down to Sioux Falls one time and see if that lieutenant is actually called Sam Clemens or not, because I always think about Mark Twain when they say it. The cop that they always have on is Sam Clemens.
Sam Clemens. Well, there was a school, and I can't remember if it was Mark Twain or if it was Samuel Clemens School in Sioux Falls. I'm not sure if it's since been renamed, but yeah, I remember when I first moved down here like 23 years ago. That was down here. So yeah, it's pretty cool. He might just be.
I like what Eric says. He says, my kids have guns in their classroom. They homeschool, so I know that they're getting a great physical education program there. A lot of times it involves hunting this time of year, so that's great. Oh, what's he got here? Doug says, I'm guessing that's in his reference to SEC. Is that where we get the litter boxes for the cat kids or whatever they're called? The furries.
When I was in the legislature, they talked about having litter boxes in the classrooms, and they swore up and down it wasn't happening, but it was happening.
There's so many videos out there showing that it was. And that's not it. They lie about it. I mean, you can literally take video of it and show it to people. Nope, it's not happening. Really? No, my eyes just deceived me, I guess. Yeah. Jason, if you don't like your haircut, you can buy yourself a Guns and a 701 cap from the website. Nice one.
Yep.
Nice.
True.
I like that.
I might have to.
There we go.
For that.
I need it by Wednesday though, because I need a nice haircut.
We'll do a special delivery.
I'm doing on Wednesday. I wanted to look good.
We can get you one by Wednesday.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen now.
Oh, man, we would put that one up there. All right. So, in closing here, we're going to wrap this up. We can only go 2 hours anyway. Is there anything else you'd like to let everybody know? I mean, I know you won some guys over here. I know that I've already voted for you. I think you're a great candidate, and you're a breath of fresh air when it comes to in comparison to Baszler. I haven't liked her for a long, long time.
Well, I wouldn't recommend that anybody listen to the debate on the Rob Port Network, but if you want to, it's so funny because the one statement that Kirsten Baszler said was, Jason, you could have did more when you were a state senator. Well, for one thing, I only got 2 years out of a 4-year term. Yep. I had 7 bills and 2 resolutions, and I learned 2 new, political subs and judiciary that I was on. We were fighting COVID. I mean, I really don't think I could have done more, but she said that I could have done more. So that's my goal.
I mean, she's been there a hell of a lot longer than that. She hasn't accomplished anything except destruction. She's made it worse.
Well, haven't you seen her post? She got to go and have a sandwich at a store or something.
At the Red Pepper.
At the Red Pepper. Come on.
Maybe I'd like to see her quit beating up her boyfriend, having the cops have to come to a domestic dispute call, driving around drunk, and destroying our public school system. That's what I want to see her do, but I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon.
It's not good. I can tell you what, I had to defend myself when I wasn't guilty of anything. When I was a state senator also. And I'll tell you what, no one will fight harder than me. I have taken my time, my talent, and my treasure, and I will do that in this job. I don't care what I get paid. I will put it all towards it, and we will be working until we get this fixed, because it's not that difficult. They don't want to fix it.
No.
They don't want to fix it.
Follow the money. There's too much money to be made by fixing anything.
There's a thing called an IEP, and schools make a lot of money on those.
Yes, they do.
And I'll tell you what, I know you got to go, but I'll tell you this last story. My son was about a head taller than everybody else in school. Right now he's 6'7", and he's got size 16 feet. And he's 25 years old. Okay. But they kept sending me emails all the time because they were very worried that he was going to hurt somebody in school.
What?
And so yep. And so the one time they sent me an email and it said that Kelly was breaking pencils. All right. And so I finally said enough. And I called the principal, and he was a good guy, Dave Hansen. He doesn't work there anymore. But I called Dave and I said, Dave, can you explain this last email to me? Because I'm just kind of having a hard time understanding it. I said, so you said that he's breaking pencils. I said, what does he do with them then? Does he stick them in people's arms, or does he stick them in people's eyes, or what does he do with them? And he said, well, we go over and we grab them and then we throw them in the garbage. And I said, do you know how bored he is? I mean, do you actually know how bored he is? Because what's happening is he's calling for attention, and he's breaking pencils, and you're going over and picking them up. I said, who pays for the pencils? And he said, well, you do, Jason. And I said, I'll buy a heck of a lot more pencils if you start keeping him busy. And that was all it was.
And I think that comes from, as Mike hinted at this, we teach to the slowest. We teach down. We absolutely do. And not everybody learns at the same rate and in the same way. I struggled with that in school, even though I was a straight A pretty much student. But my math teacher and I didn't get along because I didn't show my work because I didn't know how. I did it in my head. And he just was insistent.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't do it any other way. I said, I can't do it your way. He said, well, how'd you get the answer? I said, I don't know. I'm smarter than you. I have no clue. And that didn't go over well. But I literally had to get my parents involved. And luckily, my dad was on the school board, and that did help. But I sat there and I took a test in front of him with nothing else, and I aced it and never showed 1 ounce of work. And he just couldn't believe it. He was still insisting I cheated somehow.
Right.
And this is the problem in a public school setting. You might have kids that excel at something, you know that? And if you do, why not encourage that? No, we stifle it, and then we get pencil breakers. You know what I'm getting at?
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the old Kurt Vonnegut story, the Harrison Bergeron story, where they, if the more exceptional you were, the more they weighed you down so that you were equal to everybody else. So the prettier you are, they put an ugly mask on you. The more weights they put on you because you were too athletic, and sometimes I think that Kurt was really hitting on something there for what you see in school. It's not a one size fits all situation. Kids are different, and you have to have a smaller class size in order for teachers to be able to focus individually on your things. And I think that's the problem.
I was in grade school through the 80s, and they actually had us divided. They had basically 2 classes of, say, kindergarten, 2 classes of first grade. We had enough kids for that. And and we didn't know this at the time, but in our school system, they actually had those that were accelerating and getting better grades. We were in that class, and then the other ones were in the other. Which really sucked because most of my friends were in the other one. So I was up there, and we did have harder things. They also had what they called a TAG program. It was called Talented and Gifted. And you got to go to that, and that's when I was introduced to computers. Commodore 64s. That tells you how far back that was. That was the newest, latest, greatest, right?
Yeah.
And we were allowed to start learning programming and stuff on that because we had the grades to support it. Now, was that the right way to do it? I don't know, but at least it was an attempt to try and make that, okay, we got kids that can do different work. They can do advanced work. Why not group them together and let them do it?
Why not?
And they don't do that anymore.
I'm going to say something that's probably a little unpopular for some of this, but one of the things that I've noticed in the schools, as my kids have been growing up, is that kids with very, very intense special needs are put in regular classes, and of course, and a lot of them, and my wife hates this. My wife hates this term, but they have an actual handler to be in there with them the whole time. So you're paying someone a full thing to be in there with them, and this, instead of putting them in a classroom with teachers that are skilled at this in order to teach and advance them and get them to where they need to be. Instead, we've got the distraction of kids in the class for the other kids. And I know that's not always a popular thing, but you know, to me, it never made any sense. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I've seen it. I mean, we had a girl that she was 2 grades behind me, and she did have a mental retardation. That's okay
Yeah.
to say that. She definitely should probably not have been with us. Okay,
Mhm.
and it was a distraction because she would, you know, she did good for the most part. We were nice to her. You know, I
Oh,
mean,
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
yeah, but it was a distraction when she'd have a blow up.
Hmm.
Right.
There were problems with it. To me, it's a disservice to those students. You know, why not have them be, like you said, with the teacher that can actually handle that? I'm sorry, the special ed teachers at that time, especially, couldn't handle it. They weren't
Hmm.
trained for that.
No, no.
Right.
And
We're
I think
in,
that's a
in
big disservice. But
oh, go ahead. In Wymer, we actually had all the special ed kids from the area come to Wymer, and they would stay in Wymer. And so we had special ed kids in our classes, and sometimes, you know, they had their own classes and stuff like that. But we had some of them that were out for football and things like that. And I tell you what, we treated them all good. Years later, I was running for senator, and I was in Lisbon, which is about 30 miles, you know, from
relatives in
here.
Lisbon.
And I come around the corner, and there's Randy Staffke. He's like, Jason, how you doing? And I mean, you know, we got along well with everybody. And so, you know, I just said, I thought that Weimer did a great job with the
I think it
special ed.
depends on the level
Yep.
of the disability,
Mhm.
honestly.
Yep.
Some of them
I'm
can
with you.
handle it,
I'm with you.
but
I'm with
some
you.
of them I've seen, like here a couple years ago in Lemon, wheelchair, couldn't move, really wasn't communicative, and stuck them in the general school population.
Mhm.
That wasn't right.
And that's tough. That's
And
tough.
they had to, by law, actually take that student and then hire a teacher. So that was a huge expense to the school for
Mhm.
one student. And to me, that was a disservice to that kid. It really was.
Later on in life, I was a full-time EMT for Wapton Breck Ambulance, and we had group homes in Wapton, and we used to have to go there because there was issues sometimes. And I saw things that nobody ever gets to see. And I tell you what, sometimes the group homes are a good environment, sometimes they're not. But they put everybody into a group home and just said it's going to work, and it didn't.
Again, level of it, and then the
Yes.
level of the people who take
Right.
care of them. Yeah, it's just like school systems. They're not a single cookie cutter solution for everybody's teaching ability or
Absolutely.
or learning ability. Absolutely, yeah. So,
Well,
and
and I
listen,
think
I've got relatives over there, Jason. I'm related to most of the heck rolls in that area.
Okay.
a lot of administrative school teachers that administrative. I think some of the good teachers have stayed teaching, and I think the bad ones have failed up to go into administrative. And I mean, am I wrong on that? I mean, but does that not seem the way? I mean, there's a lot of problem, and we have a problem in our country with middle management. We have too many middle management, and corporate has a problem with that. Government has a problem with that, and too many middle managers that don't have the skills. I see this one joke that's going around right now. It says, "I'm sitting there listening to my boss complain that he doesn't know how to create a PDF." And he makes $30,000 more than I do. You know, yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, the middle management, it's everywhere, especially in government.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I can hear you. So
We're talking about you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
So, all right. Well, we're getting down to our last 9 to 8 minutes. We can only go 2 hours here. So,
That's fine.
anything else you want to leave everybody with other than what we've covered?
You know, you just had this David ask about the specialty schools. I mean, those are in the Constitution. They have to be taken care of.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that's in the Constitution. You know, the one thing I will tell you, and maybe it's wrong, all right, but this is my idea. They want to change the name of the deaf and dumb to something else. And I still worry about what is actually in that bill that we're not seeing that's going to cause trouble later.
I voted no.
Huh?
I voted no on that.
I voted no. I voted no because I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Well,
I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't like it.
Steve Bannon, like he says, there's no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences.
All right.
And I can tell you this. I think it's a waste of money as far as all the labeling, branding, and stuff that goes along with that. That's expensive. Ask UND. And it's fueled by for the wrong reasons. You know what? I'm tired of culture of cancel culture. I'm tired of political correctness. Those terms didn't mean that in the day, and they're not treated like that today either. It's a name. Who cares? Nobody. It's not offensive. Just freaking sack up and let it go. I'm tired of this crap.
Is that our new shirt? We're
Yeah,
gonna have a new
sack
shirt.
up and let it go. Gun in the
Sack up.
701.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people call me about the ballot measures. Okay, like I know about them, but anyway, they've called me, and in fact, one of them today was actually in a voting booth today, calling me about it, which I think is too darn late. But I basically said there's only one ballot measure to vote for. The rest of them, no. The Constitution was made in a great way. Was made by a bunch of people that knew what the heck they were talking about, and there's no way to change it. There's no reason to change it just because you feel bad. And that's how I feel about measure number 1. I'm not for it.
It's a feelings thing, and I'm not for it, and I voted no. And that's
yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you on that. So had Doug 100%. I missed something here. He goes, "Oh, Doug, yes, we are spending too much time trying to teach English to 20 different language students, and now we don't have time for the special needs students." Well, that's probably happening.
That's true.
They're being
the one thing I will bring up is in the Fargo school system, I think there's close to 80 different languages that they have interpreters for.
Wow.
If I'm not wrong, if I am, I apologize, but I think that's right. And see these groups, which we finally got rid of Lutheran Social Services because they went broke, thank God.
But
thank God.
Bergam took up a bunch of it.
But I said that the problem is, how can we pay people to bring people over here and just drop them off? How come that's not in the cost to make sure that they can speak the language before they're taught in a public school?
Well, because they want the confusion. They want dependence. They want people that are dependent on basically being taken care of cradle to grave.
Yes.
And that's what they're searching for. And that's the kind of people they bring in.
You are absolutely right.
I mean, that's where it's at. Let's see. Is there any other thing? I'm just kind of going through the comments here. Here's one. What would Jason's plan be to retain more North Dakota college grads as teachers? Good question.
Well, we talked about that during the debate. If you're going to get people who want to be a mechanic or an electrician or anything like that, you got to start early.
Right.
Because people have to want to be a teacher. I mean, you can't just throw money at them. It's a big responsibility. It's just like an electrician. Right. You just can't make people into electricians. They have to want to do that job. I tell you, at my job, there's no way that I would drive payloader. I don't care what amount of money that they would give me. I couldn't do it.
Oh my God.
But I love driving truck. I can drive truck for 12 hours, 6 days a week. I love it.
See, and then there's people like me. I love driving that big equipment, tearing shit up. I just love it.
Well, if they put me in an excavator for a day, they'd find me laying beside it. Okay, at the end, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, guys, I'll tell you what. So if you want to check out anything else here, Jason has a website. Go to Jason Heitkamp 4ND. That's the number 4ND.com, and you can find out everything. He's got. Go check. I really encourage you to go there because some of the things we talked about, he's got it in here. He's got a healthy lifestyles, review pay and retirement, transparency and budget, going back to the Constitution, safety and security. He covers it all, everybody on there. And I highly urge you to go hit that website and check out exactly what Jason's about, because I said he has a plan. Jason has a plan, he has a goal, and he has a way to do it. And I guess that's why I wanted to have you on and talk to everybody, not just about the guns, but about your campaign too. And I think we've covered a lot of things, and I really, really do appreciate everybody hanging in there and asking a lot of questions. So yeah.
One thing I will tell you is the healthy lifestyles. Okay. The same person with the master's degree and the teacher. Yep. No, I know I won't be long, but she said we already have Fayed. Okay. Now, a year and a half ago, I almost lost my gallbladder. I had a gallbladder attack. Okay. Since then, I've lost 45 pounds in a healthy manner, not doing any weird workouts, nothing like that. Still driving truck, still have my gallbladder. This is what people need to do. They need to be taught how food affects them, how
Right.
living affects them, and how everybody is different. And that's what we need to teach in school, because these kids, they don't even know how to feed themselves.
You're absolutely right there. Way too much takeout, too much, heat up and eat process. Yeah, they have no clue where their food comes from. So, I mean, that's a whole nother issue. But yeah,
Yep.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So,
All right,
right.
guys. So everybody, Friday, Mitchell in the morning. I'll be on there at 7:15 Mountain, 8:15 Central. Todd and I will have the happy ending of the week as usual. I think I found a couple great stories about what's happening in some of these races. I imagine we're going to talk about the election. Then Monday, we're on with Michael Bell, Dakota Mornings. Me and Jamie will be joining him at 10 o'clock in the Central Time Zone on Dakota Mornings. We might be there for the whole 2 hours there, but just on for the first hour, or I mean that last hour. So tune into there, KFYR 550 AM, and then Tuesday night, election night, Jamie and I will be live at Kelly Armstrong's little gathering up there out at Black Hill, or not Black Hill State, Bismarck State College. And we're going to try to broadcast live there, get some interviews, give you some election coverage on that. And I imagine we're going to have a victory party out there. I have no doubt on that. So tune in. We're going to have a busy week here the next few days, and we're looking forward to it. Jason, thank you. Appreciate you coming on. Good luck. I'd already voted for you, so we'll be watching those results. Maybe we'll get to call you on Tuesday night and go, yes, we did it.
you guys can call me anytime.
There you go.
All right,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
tuning in tonight. Check everything out, gunsand701.com and all our social media platforms. Yes, we do have a new fascist book one, GAT701. We'll see how long it lasts. I see it was not broadcasting that tonight. So who knows? They probably nixed us already. Anyway, thank you, everybody. We'll see everybody on Friday. Keep your powder dry, everyone. See you next